Hey everybody, it's Ms. Cole. Today we are going to look at Works Cited pages. Specifically, once we have the information for the Works Cited entries, what we do to make sure that the formatting is correct according to MLA format. So I'm going to pull up this document, which is not correct, but it's based on one of the assignments that my class has done. And it is actually originally generated by a student, but I put in some extra mistakes so that I would have something to correct. So if this looks familiar to you, the basic information should, if you're one of my students, but it's probably not exactly your work because I made changes. All right, so here we go. The first thing that we're going to do is change the font and font size. Everything in an MLA formatted document should be 12 point or roughly 12 point. It's been 12 point for a while. They're allowing more flexibility. 12 point Times New Roman. So use Control A to select all. This will just everything. If you click and drag to select all, sometimes you don't actually get everything. With a keyboard shortcut, you know you're getting everything. So I highly recommend that. And then up in your toolbar, find the font drop down and choose Times New Roman. And then change the size to 12. There we go. And then nothing should be in bold. Don't worry about italics. Some things should be in italics, but we're going to deal with that later. Nothing should be underlined, and the text color should just be black. Some of it, if you have a link in there that may have changed the text color to blue, not a big deal. Just don't have it in like yellow or something super funky there. All right. So font Times New Roman 12. The next thing, with everything still selected, remember Control A or Command A on a Mac is to select all. Everything should be double spaced. So we're going to get to that. There is a toolbar up here that if you hover over it, it'll say line and paragraph spacing. You can use that, click on that, and it'll say single, 1.15, 1.5 double. You want to choose double there. You can also get to it over here through the formatting menus on, once again, line and paragraph spacing. So if it's not in your toolbar, you can find it through the menu. So we're going to change that to double. And then that spaces everything out. The next thing that we're going to do is add a page break. Now the instructions said to do this before, and the student did it, which is great, but some students forgot, so I wanted to go back over that. You want to put your cursor right in front of the W of Works Cited. And then you're going to go to Insert, the Insert menu, scroll down to Break, and choose Page Break. Click that, and then you'll see that there's this gray line right here if you're on View by Pages. So that tells you where the page break is. All right, so next we have the words Works Cited here. So we're going to select just that. We don't want everything selected because this is the only part of it that we're going to be affecting right now. And you notice that that's all the way over to the left. That shouldn't be. And this is not something that I had told my students to do before. So if you're just like, oh man, making all these changes, don't worry about it. This is not something that I asked you to do when you set up the Works Cited page so that we could practice it now. So this is going to be centered. Do not center this with spaces or a tab. Don't just move it over using that. And also do not center this using your ruler up at the top. In your toolbar or on the formatting menu, there is an alignment button. So you can either hover over it and it'll say center align. That's what you want. Or if you go to the format menu, you can click the format menu, go down to align and indent, and then again, choose the one that says center because we want to center the words Works Cited. Couple of other things that we're going to do here. One is that this is kind of a subheading, so it's like a mini title. So we have the W capitalized already, which is correct, but we're also going to capitalize the C here in Works Cited. So these two words, the W and the C, both get capitalized. Additionally, something that the student already did, which you should have too, is use the S in Works Cited. This is because for this assignment, we have two entries, which means there are two works that we included on this page. We have cited both of them. If there was only one source, it would be work cited because we're only using one work that we're pulling from. I also want to point out there should be a space in between. There's 2 words here, which means we got a space here. And additionally, there should be a D at the end here. So make sure that it's not cited, that it is works cited spelled correctly. All right. Additionally, I'm seeing this here, and I should have done this before when I did double spacing, but I missed it. Sorry. So we're going to go here. Is there anything typed on this line? No. No, there is not. That means it needs to go away. Goodbye. Hey, here's another one. There's nothing typed on this line. It goes away. There are no blank lines in MLA formatting. Nothing. If it's empty, it goes away. So the next thing that we're going to do is set up what's called a hanging indent, also called a reverse indent. So we're going to click and drag to select just our works cited entries. We are not going to select all, and we're also not going to select the words works cited. So once we have that selected, we're going to go to Format, Align and Indent, and we're going to go over here to Indentation Options. Click that. Now we're going to do something different. So this is a special indent. Right now mine says none, and I'm going to change that to hanging. So again, this is on the Format menu under Align and Indent, and the pop-up is Indentation Options. So I'm going to choose hanging so that it's on the pop-up, and mine already sets to 0.5. This is the number that you want, 0.5 for ½ an inch of an indent. And then I'm going to click Apply, and look what it does to the text. Whatever sticks out over here on the left is the beginning of a works cited entry. This makes it easy to go from one to the next as I'm looking down through. How many works cited entries are there? I don't know. Well, you can just look at what sticks out. Here's one thing sticking out. Here's another thing sticking out. There are 2 works cited entries. There are 2 things sticking out. That is correct. So that's all the basic formatting. This is what it should look like. Now we need to go back through and make some corrections. The first thing we need to make sure is that we have the correct information. So we're going to look. The first thing we look for is the author's name. So this should be the author's name. The author's last name is Notopoulos. Notopoulos, I'm going to say it with confidence and give it my best guess, just like I always tell my students. And the first name is Katie. Then we have the title of the article. Teens say social media isn't as bad for them as you might think. Then we have the title of the source where it was originally published. We're going to check back on Common Lit. This says BuzzFeed News. Is that where it was originally published? Then we're going to look at the date of publication. Remember that if we have it, we should use the number of the day, the abbreviated month, and the 4-digit year. After that, we want the database where it was pulled from, which is Common Lit. After that, we want the URL where we found it. And then after that, we want the date of access, which again should be the number of the day, the abbreviated month, and the 4-digit year. So the word on does not actually go there. So, and then Feb should be capitalized, which actually I'm going to get to later. So let's undo that. Control Z is undo. So let's leave that there. So access Feb 22. Okay, and then the same thing, making sure that we have the correct information. The author's name, Kelly McSweeney. The title, This is Your Brain on Instagram, Effects of Social Media on the Brain. You do not need to include effects of social media on the brain. That is after a colon, that's called a subheading. So you can use it if you want to. You don't have to include that. You can just stop at Instagram. This was, according to this, it was originally published on Science News for Students. Double check the date. This just has the year. Do we have a more complete date than that? This is from Common Lit. And the URL is here. We will go back through and correct the punctuation in just a little bit. And then this date of access is set up correctly. So the next thing that I want to make sure that I have is the correct order. We have some corrections to make here. The author's name should be last name first. So Notopoulos should come first, then a comma, and then the author's first name, Katie. Then Teen Say should be the title of the article, which it is, then the title of the original source, then the date, which we have here, and then the title of the database, which we have, then the URL, then the date of access. So most of this is in the correct order. The one thing is making sure that we have the author's last name first. Same thing with the second one. Here I need to take Kelly out of from the front here and then put it after the author's last name. So McSweeney, comma, Kelly, period. Then the title of the article, which we've got, the original source where it was published, Science News for Students, the date it was first published, the title of the database, the URL, and the date of access. We're good so far. There's one other thing that we need to do for order. When we moved the author's first name to where it should be, that also tells me that I'm going to need to change these, because notice that the author's last name here is Notopoulos, and the author's last name here is McSweeney. Works cited entries go in alphabetical order. So what I can do here is I can click and drag. I'm staying outside here in the margins so that I get each full line. I want just these entries. I am going to hold down the Control key and press X. This is cut. Now what you can do is you can copy and paste it and then delete if you're feeling uncertain. But cutting it removes it and copies it to the clipboard. Now I'm going to click in front of Notopoulos, comma, Katie, and I'm going to use Control V to paste it. All right, making sure that Notopoulos, comma, Katie is on the next line, so I still have two hanging indent entries. All right, so now it's in the correct order for Works Cited. McSweeney, Kelly comes before Notopoulos, Katie. The next thing I'm going to go through and correct is capitalization. So this person already did a good job with McSweeney, paying attention to the fact that this author capitalizes the S after Mick. So that's important. We want to be respectful of people's names. Now, on the article, we may have seen that it was in all caps. However, for MLA formatting, we're not going to use all caps. We're going to change it so that it is correct. This is Your Brain on Instagram. All right, so this is Your Brain on Instagram. Each word, the first letter is capitalized, and only the first letter, except for the word on, which is a preposition. Prepositions only get capitalized when they're the very first word in the title. Same sort of thing for the subhead or subtitle. Effects of social media on the brain. So here, of and on are both prepositions, so they do not get capitalized. The word the is an article. A, and the are called articles, and they do not get capitalized either, unless, once again, they're the first word in the title. All right, Science News for Students is also a title. But the only change I'm going to make here is deleting that S and capitalizing that, because for is also a preposition, and it doesn't get capitalized. All right, Common Lit, capitalized, and the A in date of access is capitalized. The J in Jan is capitalized. That's correct. And then the same thing for the next entry. Teens say social media isn't as bad for them as you might think. So I'm going to do it one word by one word because I'm not going to be able to remember all of that if I delete the whole thing. Teens say gets capitalized. Social gets capitalized. Media gets capitalized. Isn't gets capitalized. As does not get capitalized. I would probably want to check that one out. It's a small word. Should it be capitalized or not? That is one that I would want to check because I think it can be a preposition. Is it being used as a preposition here? I'm not sure. That's one that I would want to check on. Bad is an adjective. For is a preposition, so it's all lowercase. Them is a pronoun. Once again, I'm going to put as lowercase, but that's one that I would want to double check. All right. You is a pronoun. Might is a helping verb, so that gets capitalized, and think is a verb as well. BuzzFeed News is capitalized correctly. Common Lit is capitalized. Accessed 11 Feb. Feb is the name of a month, and the F should be capitalized. So the next thing that I'm going to do is format the titles. I need to italicize the title of the containers. So the original source contains the article, so that goes in italics in both cases. So Science News goes in italics, as does BuzzFeed News. That goes in italics. Now, something I'm going to want to look up. There's a dot there. I don't think there should be a dot there, but I want to go back to the original source. Is it called BuzzFeed.news? I want to go back to Common Lit and look at that. Is it called BuzzFeed.news, or should there be a space there? That's something to check. I don't know off the top of my head. And then likewise, Common Lit contains the article right now. It is the database. So that gets italicized as well. So I'm going to go up here and press the I. You can also use the keyboard shortcut Command I or Control I to italicize it as well. All right, so the next thing I'm going to look at is punctuation. This is where it gets really, really detail oriented. This is where I would highly suggest going back to your directions and to the lesson on setting up a works cited entry, going back through it. I've done this a lot, so I know it pretty well, but going back through and comparing this to the directions that you have on your printout or the lesson that is on the YouTube channel, check with that, because this is a lot to remember. So author's last name, comma, first name, period. Good so far. Quotation marks hug what's inside them for the title of the article. Go all the way down to the title of the article. We need a period at the end of the title of the article before the closing quotation marks. Science News for Students, comma, then the date. Again, making sure that the date is complete there. We may need to go back to Common Lit and check. This URL is not correct. It should just be www.commonlit.org. We've got Common Lit twice for some reason. There we go, commonlit.org. All right, and I'm going to undo the link. Okay, so now if I want the link in there, I think I can just put a space here and there we go. And then there should be a period after the URL. So the link does not have to be automatically underlined. It doesn't have to be a link. The URL does not have to be a link, but I'm particular about consistency in my own work. If I got a works cited page that did not have all of the URLs underlined, had some of them underlined and some not, I don't think I would take any points off for it. It's not a big deal, but that's one of the things that kind of shows that you're going above and beyond for that consistency. All right, accessed, capital A, got that already. 19 Jan 2022, the period after the abbreviated month. Abbreviations get periods, don't forget that. And then there should always be a period at the end. This one got forgotten. The one down here is already there, which is great. So, likewise, second works cited entry. Author's last name, comma, first name, period. And then quotation marks go around it. This is going to be a little bit tricky here because if we don't have a space after the period, the quotation marks may not point the right direction. So quotation marks hug the title. Teens say social media isn't as bad for them as you might think. Period inside the closing quotes. BuzzFeed News, comma, and then the date, period. And then the container, the database, and then a comma, and then the URL, and there should be a period after the URL. There was the first time, there needs to be one here. Accessed 11 Feb, period after Feb, 2022, period there. All right, the last thing we want to check on is the correct spacing. So make sure after the comma, after the author's last name, you have a space. Make sure you've got a space after the period. Likewise, after the title, period, quotation marks, and then the space. I think most of this is set up correctly, which is awesome. Comma after the title of the original source, space after the comma. period after the date, space after the period. Comma after the database, space after the comma. Period after the URL, space after the period. Date of access. Make sure we have spaces here. Period after the abbreviated month, and then a space, and then a period at the end. Same thing for the second works cited entry. Comma after the author's last name, space. Period after the author's last name, space. Quotation marks, no space after the opening quotes. At the end of the title, we have a period, quotation marks, and then space. The title of the original source, comma, space. The date of the original publication, period, space. The database, comma, space. The URL, period, space. The date of access, period after the abbreviated month, space. And then the year, and a period. If you put a space after the period at the very end, you know what? I'm probably not going to notice. So if there's a little space there, no big deal. And then this should be everything. Go back through, check your work. This is something that is not difficult, but there's a lot that goes into it, and it's easy to miss the details. Remember the article that we read that said, I don't hire people who use poor grammar, and here's why. And the rationale was that this person, this entrepreneur, wanted to make sure that everybody who worked for him paid attention to details. This is that kind of thing. This is just one more way to practice paying attention to details. MLA formatting is not super important in the, scheme of life, It's just not. But it gives you an opportunity to practice paying attention to little details. And that is a skill that is important. So I hope that you will take a breath, take your time, go through this and check your work. Your work deserves that kind of attention. Your ideas, your skill, your learning. It deserves effort. You deserve effort. Good luck. Bye for now.